The truth about marriage and sexual relations. Contrary to popular opinion, marriage is not the license for a person to act out their animalistic lusts. Neither is the marriage bed of husband and wife to be treated as a playground for either individual's preference of worldly filth. The marriage covenant must be kept honorable, and the marriage bed must be kept undefiled as it was created. This can only be realized when it is kept within the boundaries of the law of Yahweh Almighty, and not by the ideals of sinful humankind. For it is written in Hebrews 13:4, "Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled, but whoremongers and adulterers Yahweh will judge." Yet, what have the idiots of mankind done instead? They have defiled at every turn what is called holy by the creator of it. They have profaned the very act that is created to bind husband and wife in unity as one flesh before Yahweh Almighty, and they have turned it into a cesspool of perversions, unclean perverted same-gender unions, and the incorrect timing commanded for this union that's filthy and stinks to high heaven. The Torah does not leave this matter to the imagination. The law outlines when intimacy is clean to engage in and when it is not clean to engage in. It is written in Leviticus 15:19 through 24 that when a woman has her monthly period, she is unclean for 7 days, and whoever touches her or has sex with her during this time becomes unclean as well. Again, in Leviticus 18:19, Yahweh Almighty forbids uncovering the nakedness of a woman during her monthly or prolonged impurity, calling it an abomination. Ezekiel 18:6 declares that righteousness itself is ascribed to the man who has not defiled his neighbor's wife, nor approached a woman in her impurity. Yet, men and women today laugh at this righteousness, sneering at the command of Yahweh Almighty as if he knows nothing about their bedroom activity. They roll into bed, saturated with blood-defiled sheets, and then have the nerve to lift up their hands in prayer, unknowing that their prayers rise like the smoke from animal poop and will never reach heaven's grand designer. Again, the law speaks that, when a woman bears a child, she is now unclean, as it is written in Leviticus 12:2 through 5. She is unclean for 7 days for a male child and 14 days for a female child. And the days for her purification process are 33 for a male child and 66 days for a female child, respectively. Yet modern men laugh at this law, while running to his wife for sex like a household pet runs to its owner for food and petting, before her body has healed correctly, in turn despising the sanctity of her purification process, proving that he values his own twisted pleasures above the holiness of Yahweh's commandments. It is no wonder that their children are born sickly and ill, their households are cursed, and their marriages are plagued with strife. You cannot sow rebellion against the order of heaven and expect to reap blessings from the Creator. Understand that the man is not free from accountability in this situation. It is written in Leviticus 15:16 through 18 that if a man has an emission of semen, for any reason, he must wash himself and will remain unclean until that evening. If he has sex with his wife, both of them must bathe and will remain unclean until that evening. Yet, how many treat this as foolishness? They rise from their filth and walk straight into their so-called prayer practices and call themselves righteous. They do not understand that the uncleanness of the man transfers to the woman, and the uncleanness of the woman transfers to the man. Sexual intimacy is the union of two into one flesh. If one of them is unclean, then they both are now defiled. Yahweh is not mocked. He commanded in Leviticus chapter 18 that there be no sexual intercourse during times of impurity, that there be no fornication, that there be no adultery, no homosexuality, no incest, and no beastly abominations. He left no loophole, no shadow of a doubt. The Apostle Shaul confirmed it in Romans 1:24 through 27. Where he declared that Yahweh Almighty gave men and women over to vile affections to dishonor their bodies between themselves. What society today calls freedom is nothing but bondage to sin and corruption. What they call pleasure is just the stench of rebellion, a curse. Understand this. Sexual intimacy is not simply a physical release. It is a covenant. It is the sealing of a union between husband and wife before heaven and earth. It is an altar where the two become one flesh, as it is written in Genesis 2:24. To corrupt that altar with uncleanness is to invite judgment upon the entire household. For this reason, Shaul wrote in 1 Corinthians 7:3-5 that husband and wife must render due benevolence to one another, but only by consent, only in righteousness, and only in clean times. He warned that neither should defraud the other, except for prayer and fasting, proving that the sexual act must be governed by devotion, not one's selfish carnal appetite. Yeshua himself lifted the law even higher, declaring in Matthew 5:27-28 that even to look on a married woman with lust is adultery of the heart. Since lustful glances are sin, how much more is unclean intercourse that is done in defiance of the law? Since sinful thoughts are condemned, then the deed done in impurity brings damnation. Therefore, listen to the word of Yahweh. If you defile the marriage bed in times of your impurity, or if you trample the laws of clean and unclean behavior in the bedroom, you are not merely indulging in fleshly lusts, you are practicing an abomination. And unless you repent of these actions and thoughts, your body will suffer the consequences. For it is written, "Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill." 5:17. Yahshua came to magnify the law, not to abolish it. He came to establish holiness in the inward parts of a person as well, and not to lower the standard so that sinners can wallow in their filth and still call themselves righteous. The marriage bed is a holy place. The act of intimacy is a holy covenant. Holiness demands order, it demands timing, and it demands obedience. Touch your wife in her impurity, and you have just sinned. Enter her body during her period, and you have committed an abomination. Defile her before her purification from childbirth, and you bring wrath upon your entire household. Ignore your own uncleanness, and you infect her as well. These things are not cultural traditions. They are the eternal laws of the Almighty. Hear this warning. Cleanse yourselves. Sanctify your bed. Do not rise in prayer while the stain of rebellion is on your sheets. Do not seek blessing while you defy the very laws that govern what a blessing is. Sexual intercourse between husband and wife is a gift from Yahweh Almighty, but only when it is observed in obedience to His commandments. Otherwise, it is the same act that brought wrath upon the nations of old, the same abominations for which the land back then vomited them out. Choose this day to honor Yahweh with your body. Choose to guard the covenant of intimacy as holy. Choose to walk in obedience, so that your bed will be undefiled, so that your prayers are unhindered, and so that your household is marked with blessings and not with curses. For Yahweh Almighty has spoken, and His word cannot ever be broken, and thankfully, it will never change. In Messiah's name, service, and right hand, so be it.